Welcome to Gamecock Pod Live.
For the next 3 to 4 years, I'll be committed to the University of Gamecock.
This is Rogers again to the 25, 20, 15, 10. Rogers scores! Jackie Bradley Jr. delivers for the Gamecocks. Lost it up, looking for Kelly. Touchdown! Can you believe it?
And South Carolina is sending shockwaves through the SEC.
Frederick plays it in at the buzzer. That's a win! Unbelievable! I don't believe it!
And now, live from Studio 54 of the Gamecock Pod Studios, here's the Cockfather himself, Keith Alsep.
All right, everybody, good afternoon and welcome into Gamecock Pod Live for Wednesday, April the 17th in the year of our Lord 2024. And we've got a great show in just a few minutes. While playing an interview recorded earlier this morning with Jordan Kaye from Go Gamecocks and the state, covering basically all things Gamecocks. And he also got to cover the Masters. And he, by chance, won the lottery and was one of the media members that got to play at Augusta National. And at the end of that interview, we'll talk about that. It was a really cool experience. But we'll talk certainly about the biggest news of the day, Cam Scott signing with South Carolina. We'll get into that. We'll talk Gamecock football. We'll preview the spring game. We'll get into some of the nuts and bolts and what Jordan will be watching for, what I'll be watching for. We'll talk about Gamecock women's basketball and this historic 3-year run by South Carolina's women, winning 2 of the last 3 national championships, going 110-3. And we'll also talk some Gamecock baseball. So a lot on deck, but first, let's get to our Nana's Porch news, notes, and headlines. Excuse me, brought to you by Nana's Porch, an award-winning full-service catering company servicing the greater Charlotte, North Carolina area. Whether it's a banquet, a wedding, a corporate event, a big backyard bash with a whole hog barbecue, Nana's Porch has got you covered. If you have an event, you need to bring in a food trailer. Nana's Porch voted among the top 3 food trailers in Charlotte by the local newspaper poll. And as we all know, the award-winning pimento cheese voted both number 1 and number 2 by the North Carolina Specialty Foods Association in the meat and cheese category. Nana's Porch has got you covered. And so I highly encourage all of you to support this Gamecock-owned and operated business by going to nanasporch.com. That's NANASPORCH.com. Get in touch with my good friend Chris Payne. You'll love it. I guarantee it. Anywhere in the greater Charlotte area, Lancaster, Fort Mill, Rock Hill. Let's see. Over in Gardner Webb, Kings Mountain, Cherryville, over to that 74 Eastern corridor over there to Monroe, wherever you are, Nana's Porch has got you covered. All right, obviously the big news of the day and great news for for Lamont Paris and his staff. At a little bit after 8 a.m. this morning, Cam Scott made a surprise visit to the studios at 107.5 on the early game with another former Lexington High School basketball player, Bill Gunner, although I don't think he is quite as good as Cam Scott. But Cam, his high school coach, and his family came in studio, and he announced live his commitment to South Carolina. And then later this morning at around 10:30 a.m., he put pen to paper and officially joins the Gamecocks after having committed to Texas on August 11th and then signing a national letter of intent on November the 8th. At that time, Scott was a top 25 prospect. He chose Texas over South Carolina, Alabama, Auburn, Florida State, Ole Miss, and Oregon. He went through his senior season. He averaged 24 points per game, became Lexington's all-time leading scorer with 2,475 points. He set the record for points in a game with 45. He also set the single season record for steals with 100 and was named the South Carolina Gatorade Circle of Champions Player of the Year for the second straight year. But he had some things with his family where he needed to stay closer to home. He asked Texas for a release from his national letter of intent. Scott had also signed a very lucrative NIL agreement with the Longhorns, according to some of my sources here in Austin, that was really a difference maker. But Scott needed to stay closer to home, wanted to stay closer to home. My guy, Rodney Terry, who's the head coach at the Longhorns, did not fight him on it. He said family comes first. And so the Gamecocks are the beneficiary. He knew straight away he wanted to stay home and play for Lamont Paris after the team went on an amazing run, coming up just short of winning the SEC regular season, getting a win in the SEC tournament, and then going to the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2017. Scott will now join Colin Murray Boyles, Zach Davis, and Jacoby Wright, all as South Carolina natives on the roster. He also becomes the third in a row top player from the state of South Carolina to choose to play for the Gamecocks. It started with his friend G.G. Jackson, then Colin Murray Boyles, who left the state and went out to Utah to play at the prep school, which really was a great move for him. And now Cam Scott, all three from South Carolina, all three played their high school ball in the Columbia area. And this is a great get. I mean, I think Scott, great Scott, Batman. Cam Scott, I think, will be much more of an, because of his skill set. What up, Craig? What's good with you, my man? Jump into Nana Sports chat box too. Leave your comments, questions. We'll get to those. I'll answer any questions you have during the interview, and then we'll come back on and hit them up on today's show. But to me, Cam Scott has the skill set. South Carolina has the need. Losing Meechie Johnson to the transfer portal, obviously, I think they still need to shore up the point guard position. You know, you got to replace Talon Cooper, who, let's face it, Cooper and Colin Murray Boyles really carried this team. You know, certainly you had contributions from Meechie Johnson and BJ Mack. You know, Zachary Davis, I thought, was really big down the stretch for South Carolina. I think he can take another step. Morris Ugasuk, hopefully he can take another step. A lot of guys, but you really need a point guard and a big. But Cam Scott, because he's just so highly skilled, he can score from all three levels. He's got a sweet jump shot. He can take you off the dribble. He can stop and pull up and elevate in the mid-range, and he is a high flyer. He can get to the rack and can finish through contact. He's got it all. He's an elite passer. He's a plus defender. He's a willing passer. He makes his teammates around him better. He's Craig, I agree, seems like a very mature and quality young man. I don't think you'll have the, you know, kind of selfishness and social media campaign of G.G. Jackson. Plus, I think he'll play on a much better team. You know, Lamont Paris orchestrated the biggest turnaround in the country, going from 11 wins in year one to 26 wins in year two. South Carolina finished in a tie for second in the SEC regular season. And Colin Murray Boyles really came on. Now you're adding an elite scorer with length, okay? Not a 6 foot tall guy, but a 6'5", 6'6" guy, rangy, that really can do it all. He's silky smooth, and he's an elite player from an offensive skill standpoint. I can't wait to see him play in Lamont Paris's offense. So hopefully, and maybe in some related news on the portal, South Carolina native and Alabama center Nick Pringle entered the transfer portal. 6'10", 230 pounds, a native of Seabrook Island, South Carolina. He played at Dodge City Community College, has spent the last 2 years at Alabama. He's long, athletic. He's a rim protector. He's a great offensive rebounder and finisher. And he was really big. He had several double-doubles for Alabama at the end of the season. And I think I misstated. He had the huge game over North Carolina in the Elite Eight. He played North Carolina, and Alabama knocked out the Tar Heels in the Sweet 16. He didn't do as much damage there, but against Clemson in the Elite Eight, he had probably his game of the season. He had 16 points, 11 rebounds, 4 of 6 from the field, 8 of 13 from the free throw line. 6 of his 11 rebounds were offensive rebounds. He also had 3 assists, 1 steal, and 1 block shot, and was second on the team in as a +8 in that game. And I think with the vision they have for Colin Murray Boyles and him being more of a stretch four, but also a guy that can play in the mid-range or is back to the basket. If it's not Nick Pringle, if you can get a guy like Pringle, a long, athletic big that can be a rim protector and can score in the paint, block shots, and rebound, that's really what South Carolina was missing, right? Like when South Carolina played Auburn, because of Auburn's bigs, you even saw it against East Carolina with Azar in the second half of that game. BJ Mack just was not equipped to deal with those kind of guys, and Colin Murray Boyles had to guard 6'10 and 6'11 guys in the post because Mack really couldn't handle it down there. So we'll see. Also, South Carolina does need to add a point guard. But Nick Pringle, huge in that Elite 8 win over Clemson, and you like to see a guy from South Carolina. So, Craig, the St. Mary's guard is expected to visit. It looks like Georgia may be tough to beat on him, but he would certainly be a guy, or the kind of guy you'd really like to get. 6'3", 6'4", point guard that can handle, can defend, distribute the ball, and then be a knockdown shooter from the outside. And so we'll see what happens on that. All right. Earlier today, Asia Wilson, a national champion for the Gamecocks, she was named as one of the 100 most influential people of 2024 by Time Magazine. Okay, and I'll read you the excerpt here. Asia Wilson is not just an incredible athlete. She's an inspiration to all who witness her talent and drive. Her journey is a testament to the power of passion and fearlessness in achieving greatness. Asia possesses a unique combination of natural skill and unwavering determination. This rare blend has propelled her to achieve remarkable feats in her career with 2 WNBA championships with the Las Vegas Aces, 3 times the WNBA MVP awards, both as the most valuable player and as the defensive player of the year, an NCAA championship at the University of South Carolina, and an Olympic gold medalist. Asia is undeniably a generational talent. Off the court, Asia's leadership shines just as brightly. Her foundation supports children and families who struggle with dyslexia, a cause close to her heart. Asia, in her senior year, she revealed that she was dyslexic and had struggled with that much of her life. She is also an advocate against bullying, using her platform to spread awareness and promote kindness. She's a role model for athletes and individuals of all ages around the world. Asia's determination and drive for excellence are the forces behind her team's consistent victories. Her championship mentality not only secures her place in sports history, but also cements her legacy of greatness that extends far beyond the realm of sports. And the best part is she's just getting started. She continues to push boundaries and inspire others with her remarkable journey. Asia Wilson is not just a champion. She's a symbol of resilience, compassion, and unwavering dedication. Her story is a reminder that with passion and fearlessness, anyone can achieve greatness. I know she has much more she wants to achieve, and I get to be in a front row seat watching and admiring. That was written by a guy that knows about winning. Some guy named Tom Brady, who is part owner of the Las Vegas Aces and a 7-time NFL Super Bowl champion. All right, yesterday was Malaysia Fulwiley Day at Richland 1 District Schools at Keenan High School to celebrate her accomplishments this season as part of South Carolina women's basketball's historic season of perfection, 38-0 in a national championship. Fulwiley led the Gamecocks in scoring a career high 24 points in the SEC championship game, which propelled her to being named the SEC tournament's most outstanding player. She became the first Gamecock to win that award and wound up as the second leading scorer on the team, despite coming off the bench, averaging almost 12 points per game. And she will combine with Tessa Johnson over the next 3 years to provide many more great moments. In that championship game, Fulwiley scored a career-high 24 to lead South Carolina to a 79-73 win over LSU. And the L stands for loser. Mulkey, Angel Reese. As we all know, it was Fulwiley picking Floje Johnson's pocket that got LSU frustrated, and a fight ensued that the Gamecocks definitely won. And they won the game, won the SEC tournament championship, then went on to win the national championship. And Fulwiley had some amazing moments along the way, particularly in the win over Iowa. So did Tessa Johnson, scoring a career-high 19 points. I think my favorite play of that game, other than the times Raven Johnson picked Caitlin Clark's pocket or blocked her shot, was the baseball pass from Fulwiley to Tessa, who just stopped and popped and nailed a three that was nothing but string music, as the Gamecocks went on to beat Iowa and win their second national championship in the last 3 years. Folks, fams, you need to soak it up. You need to enjoy the moments. 110-3 over the last 3 years and 2 national championships. All right, last night, Gamecock Baseball held on to beat the Citadel 4-3, scoring 2 in the first, 1 in the third, and 1 in the seventh. They held on and won to win their 5th game the last 6 outings, starting with over a week ago, Sunday's win over Texas A&M. Then they got the huge midweek win over North Carolina. Took the first 2 from Florida before dropping 11-9 game in the Sunday contest. And then last night beat the Citadel. Gamecocks will host Arkansas this week. And with Arkansas and Kentucky coming in the next 2 weekends, it's going to be make or break for Mark Kingston and his team. They are 26-11, 8-7 in SEC at the midway point, and if they can duplicate that in the second half of SEC play, if they can go 8-7, I think they got a real shot at being a national top 16 seed. Currently, the Gamecocks are RPI. They're number 13 in the RPI. Tomorrow, Gamecock offensive coordinator Dow Loggins and defensive coordinator Clayton White will meet with the media to discuss their unit's progress. They met with the media after the first practice, and I think there'll be a lot more interesting tidbits. The only thing that really came out of their first media gaggle was the fact that former Alabama head coach Mike Shula, who's coached a long time in the NFL, had joined the offensive staff as a senior offensive analyst and will work with Dow Loggins and the quarterbacks. So that I would look for a lot more. We'll hear about their unit's progress, the personnel, and areas for improvement. We'll bring you the best of that Q&A on tomorrow's pod, which is a perfect segue into this. If you enjoy listening or watching on YouTube our Wednesday show, Gamecock Pod Live, and you'd like more of Gamecock Pod Live, which is now, as we know, streaming on YouTube, you can join our growing Gamecock family by becoming a monthly or annual subscriber to Gamecock Pod Daily. You'll be able to listen to the show every single day, Monday through Friday, with special guests like Hale McGranahan and John Whittle from the Big Spur, Mike Uva from Gamecock Central, Jordan Kaye and Peyton Titus from Go Gamecocks and the State, Michael W. Bratton, the host of That SEC podcast, 24/7 Sports National College Football analyst Brad Crawford, my good friend and former Gamecock great Langston Moore, and many, many more. As a VIP subscriber, you can join or listen in our weekly live Zoom call with up to 100 of your favorite Gamecocks and friends. That is the Garnet and Black Town Hall. We usually record that for an hour. Then we go to an unrecorded overtime segment. That's where the real scoop gets dropped and discussed. It's like going down to your local pub or sports bar, hanging out, having a conversation with your Gamecocks and friends about last week's games and events, football, men's and women's basketball, baseball, and of course, there's always plenty of recruiting news to discuss. In addition to the weekly Garnet and Black Town Hall, VIP subscribers get probably my most popular podcast during football season, The Morning After, which is released every Sunday morning during football season. And more VIP perks are in the works. So to get there, follow me on Twitter at KAllsep or follow the show on Twitter at Gamecock Pod. Go to the top of the homepage and click the link. If all else fails, go to patreon.com. That's patreon.com/Gamecock Pod Daily. If all else fails, just put it in the Google and it'll get you there. Join now, get up to 3 months free off an annual VIP subscription. You'll love it. I guarantee it. All right, let's get to our interview with Jordan Kaye. All right, and we welcome back into the program Go Gamecocks beat writer at the state newspaper, Jordan Kaye. Jordan, good morning. How are you?
Morning, Keith. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. All Gamecocks woke up to some really good news this morning with Lexington elite guard. When you watch the film, 6'6", long, athletic, a consensus top 35 player. I'm not sure how he dropped from a 5-star to a 4-star when he jumped from 22 points a game as a junior and leading his team to the state semifinals to going to 24 points per game as a senior and winning the state championship. He's a 2-time Gatorade Circle of Champions, South Carolina High School Boys Basketball Player of the Year. I think this is an enormous deal for Lamont Paris to get Cam Scott to stay home after he had signed with Texas in the fall, gets released, and now he's coming to South Carolina, and it'll be 3 in a row for Lamont Paris, getting the best player from the state of South Carolina with G.G. Jackson, Colin Murray Boyles, and now Cam Scott. Your reaction?
This could not have come at a more perfect time. I mean, if you look at what South Carolina was trying to do in the portal these last couple of weeks, I mean, they had struck out on a lot of the top targets that they were going after. They needed something to break their way, and this is basically the equivalent of getting one of those big time transfer guys. Cam Scott is an impact player who can just come in right away as a freshman and start. I mean, he also doesn't need to be the G.G. Jackson type where he's got to be the number one option. I mean, there are going to be guys around him who can, take the load off him. You think of a Miles Studi, a Colin Murray Boyles. You would think they're going to bring in some transfer at some point who's going to be able to help him out. But no, it's kind of a bizarre circumstance. I mean, the kid was committed to Texas, had his NLI signed, then he gets out of it and, wants to come back home a little bit. And South Carolina's right there thinking, hey, of course he can come back home. Let's do it. Let's make it happen. And, I think they still have plenty of needs. They've got to replace the BJ Mack type, the big man who can kind of shoot a little bit. But this really, I don't think many fans can be too mad about Meechie Johnson leaving anymore. Hey, you bring in this kid. I mean, he is going to be slotted right there as your number 2 guard, probably. And let's go. I mean, this is a kid who has probably a higher upside than Meechie Johnson for next year. And to get him early, I think there's, you really can't ask for anything more right now.
I mean, honestly, I think Cam Scott's game translates even better than G.G. Jackson's game as a freshman, right?
Yeah.
Like, he left high school a year early, and he was, more of a stretch 4 kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
Very skilled. You could see it. Certainly we saw it this year after not all 15, but 8 guys from Memphis go down with season-ending injuries.
Yeah.
He got an opportunity that he otherwise would not have gotten. He would have been toiling away in the G League.
Yeah.
But he got to the show and he proved he belonged. Cam Scott, to me, I think is more of an impact freshman than Meechie Johnson, and I'd put it on par with what Colin Murray Boyles was doing at the end of the season. I think you can get a whole year of that from Cam Scott. We struggle some, sure, against bigger physical guys, but I mean, physically, he's just an elite talent and a skilled scorer at all three levels. I mean, just really explosive.
I think even more than the scoring. And I mean, he was averaging almost 24, 25 points a game at Lexington last year. I mean, the kid can score as good as anyone in the country, but he's a great passer too. I mean, that was so much of the highlights that I love to watch, is that he made his teammates so much better. He understood that the double teams would come, that he could be able to kick it out. I mean, he was always looking for guys. And I think that's huge when you get from a senior in high school. Probably the thing that G.G. Jackson lacked a little bit, and perhaps why South Carolina struggled so much when he was there. But to have a guy like Cam Scott, who's 18 years old and is not only can score but wants to pass, I mean, that's about as good as it gets for a freshman coming in.
No doubt. I mean, he is the leading scorer in the history of Lexington High School, 2,475 points. Here's the thing, is the single season record for steals. So not only is he getting it done on the offensive end, but on the defensive end, 100 steals, a record for single season number at Lexington High School. So
yeah,
you add that defensive acumen, which will only be enhanced going through the summer and the fall and preseason with South Carolina, because Lamont Paris team this past year, to me, the most surprising thing was I knew they were going to be more skilled and move the ball, but they really dug in and played great team and individual man-to-man defense.
Well, that's Lamont Paris's biggest thing, going back to, learning under Bo Ryan at Wisconsin. If you don't play defense like a chicken with your head cut off, you're not going to be in the game. So you can't score if you don't play defense. I mean, that's basically what he tells guys. And yeah, to have a guy like Cam Scott, who's already has that in his head this early and isn't going to come to college and go through his first summer under Lamont Paris and be like, what the heck is this guy trying to get me to do? I mean, that makes life a lot easier too. You would want Cam Scott, if he was just a scorer, knowing he has all these other things. You have to be so excited and kind of think, okay, could this guy be the best player on South Carolina next year as a freshman? And I think it's possible. Like, if you've got him and Colin Murray-Boyles kind of running the show a little bit, I mean, those are two extremely talented young guys who you can really kind of operate an offense around. So that part to me is so intriguing. And I'm kind of interested to see, what pieces kind of go around them. I mean, I would think, Miles Studi probably, maybe Jacoby Wright, not sure if he'll start. And then, there's got to be some guys in the portal who are going to, be impact guys. They need a center in the portal still to kind of run next to Colin. So I'll be interested to see, what shape the lineup takes.
So I've known this was coming for a few days. I got tipped off, but
yeah,
Alabama center Nick Pringle, a native of Seabrook Island, South Carolina, Dodge City Community College in Kansas. He has entered the portal, and I think, look, I don't know if South Carolina will be the choice. I mean, I'll say this about Cam Scott. He also got an amazing, not only did he sign an NLI, he got an amazing NIL deal at Texas. And so I don't know if the Garnet Trust is breaking the bank or not on this one, but Nick Pringle, 6'10", 230, long, leaper. He had a career game in that Elite Eight win over North Carolina. Nelson was in foul trouble, and he just took over that game. I mean, it wasn't Sears and the guards, although they hit big shots, but Nick Pringle just took over blocking shots and on the offensive glass and with putbacks. I think with what they envision for the notorious CMB this year, of him being more that stretch for if South Carolina could bring Nick Pringle home, then I think you do need a point guard. I do not think South Carolina has an NCAA tournament team point guard
Agreed.
currently on their roster. I think Cam Scott used to be a point guard. I think that's one of the reasons why he handles and passes the ball so well. But I think they just probably got tired of him having to do everything.
Yeah.
And so moving him off the ball really freed him up to be more of a scorer. And then as a willing passer, you saw what he could do making his teammates better, like you said. But to me, if it's not Nick Pringle, a Nick Pringle type of guy
would
really suit South Carolina and the style they want to play, because you don't really want another guy that you got to start that can't jump over a phone book. And I know you may never have seen a phone book, but BJ Mack, how about this? He couldn't jump over a shoebox. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, look at all the games that South Carolina struggled in. They struggled against Alabama because there was Nick Pringle right there, who was massive. They struggled against Auburn because Auburn had the biggest bigs in the country. They struggled against Oregon because they had a 7'1" guy down there. I mean, they struggled against all these teams that had big guys down low. You need a Nick Pringle type just to cover your weaknesses a little bit. We said after the Oregon game and the Auburn game, it's just a bad matchup for South Carolina. Well, why was it a bad matchup? It was a bad matchup because they've got massive bigs who kind of can help everything else. The one thing I'll say is just Nick Pringle is one of the best centers in the country coming off a Final Four run. I don't know what the NIL market totally looks like. Maybe there's a little bit of a discount of saying, hey, I'll go to South Carolina. I'll get, be one of the stars of the show, come home a little bit and have that. But, I saw Jeff Goodman was reporting yesterday that Omar Ballo, who was, Arizona's, big man, just committed to Indiana. And he said he was hearing that, the market was 1.2 million. So if that's the market for a big man, Omar Ballo can't even shoot. If that's the big man market, it's a tough place to compete with. So I'm a little, interested. Hey, is that what Nick Pringle is worth? Could South Carolina afford that? I don't know. But man, if they could land him, all of a sudden the weaknesses are starting to, get erased.
So I'll say this. So with the landscape of NIL changing, with the Gamecock Club, if they get the state law passed becoming a private entity, they'll be able to really, and with Garnet, the Garnet Trust and the merger of Carolina Rise, they'll be able to bring Park Avenue, which is an arm of ESM Sports Management, back under their umbrella. And those guys I think within a week, G.G. Jackson was very well compensated because of the national brand deals they were able to get for him. To me, that's the shot you shoot with Nick Pringle. If you bring him in, you get him with those ESM folks that did what they did for G.G. Jackson, what they will do for Cam Scott. I mean, certainly with him coming off of that Final Four run, he is a very marketable guy. And so to me, that's how you have to get that done, with national brand type deals. So I don't know if they can get it done, but if they can and get a point guard, South Carolina is going to be trouble, because we hadn't even mentioned Zach Davis, who'll be back. He's probably going to take another step. I think Josh Gray will take another step. They're bringing in Trent Noah and Oku Federico. Morris Ugasuk, he was expected to redshirt. He wound up being a rotational guy. He will benefit, and hopefully he gets bigger and stronger because he has to, right? But, you know, if you can get a big and a point guard to go around Kyler Murray Boyles and Cam Scott with a supporting cast and maybe another impact guy like a Nick Pringle, that's the recipe for having another run through the SEC and hopefully a deeper run into the NCAA tournament. I think you're on mute.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, a lot of those guys are hopefully going to take a bigger step. I'm not sure about, you know, Josh Gray in like year 6, how much bigger of a step he's going to take, or, you know, what Zach Davis will look like with more playing time. But, you know, there are guys, Jacoby Wright, you know, kind of being the big one to me of like, okay, if he becomes a starter, you know, could he average, you know, 12, 13 points a game? Maybe.
To me, that's a maybe.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure. I think he's better. Your team is much better if he's coming off the bench for you.
Sure. I agree. Yeah, I agree.
All right. So let's switch to Gamecock Football. The spring game. Questions by you. You and Hale McGranahan were clearly the stars of this press conference. He quickly shut my guy blue. If it's not a softball, he gets upset. But so you asked a great question on what will this player draft be like, and so it kind of opened up, kind of like essentially a simulated NFL draft between two teams. And so the spring game is on Saturday. And so just to start out with, from the interviews you've heard, the snapshots of practice you've been able to see, what you've been able to acquire from your sources, what are your general thoughts about this South Carolina football team as they get ready to wrap up spring practice?
Yeah, I think let's start with the quarterbacks because that's the natural place to start. You know, I think we all think it's going to be Lenora Sellers. I think he's the guy. It won't be a shock to me if he only plays a quarter, a half, maybe, in the spring game on Saturday. I know last year Rattler like barely played a quarter. Now, you know, he was clearly the starter and there was no real competition. So maybe Sellers plays a half. And then, you know, Ashford perhaps is on a different team and, you know, also plays a half. And then you got, you know, Dante Reno and, you know, maybe the Davis Bevel kid and those guys get in there for a half. It's like they don't have very many quarterbacks. So it's hard to say that one guy will play for a quarter. You know, they almost have to play for a half. So that part's kind of where I think that the interest starts. Beamer was saying, hey, there's a lot of different ways to go about quarterback competitions. You know, at Oklahoma, we had Kyler Murray, and I can't even remember the other guy's name, but that competition. Yeah, that competition
to West Virginia and
lit
it up there. He was actually a Charlotte kid. Yeah.
Oh, okay. But yeah, that went down to like the week before, and looks just silly now, being like, why the heck did it take that long? So there's ways of doing that. And then there's also guys who want to just announce it in spring and let the team kind of rally around the guy a little bit, go a couple months being like, hey, this is our guy. You know, we got to throw with him, blah, 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 blah. So to me, the way they've been talking about it, I think they're going to wait and probably name like Sellers the starting quarterback like the first week of August would be my guess. sometime around then. Just let it play out. And, if there's anything shocking that happens or any crazy revelation in the first week of fall ball, you can be like, okay, let's, keep it going. But not sure if that's going to happen. The second thing I'm kind of interested, they're playing, what did they call this? A flex nickel defense is what Clayton White is calling this, which is weird, to say the least. Like, Clayton White is a guy who, if you look at his background as a defensive coordinator, he was very staunch about, I am a 4-2 guy. I'm a 4 down front guy. I learned it from all these different coaches I've played or coached under. I am a 4 down guy. Well, last year, the 4 down guy thing wasn't working much. And so all of a sudden they go to a little bit of the 3-3-5. So this year they're like, okay, let's merge the best of both worlds, kind of do what we did last year. And we'll play a little 4-man front, little 3-man front. And it sounds a little like, well, is that going to work? But honestly, they kind of have like the guys to pull it off. Like, that's kind of where I'm like, wow, this actually might work. You look at like a Kyle Kennard from Georgia Tech, like that is a massive human being who's going to be able to come off the edge. You look at like Dylan Stewart, a massive human being. Bam Martin Scott, who's in his 5th year and having one of the best springs of anyone. Just a massive, fast human being coming off the edge. And these are guys who can like actually make like a flex defense work, because I think they're skilled enough to be able to like kind of drop back on as like an outside linebacker, but they're also like, they're fast enough and big enough to come up to the front and play, as a down lineman. So I'm just kind of interested to just see what that looks like. Like, how often are they actually switching between a 4-man front and a 3-man front? Can fans even tell? Like, because just the way that, these linebackers or, the outside linebackers line up, are we going to be able to tell? And, does that make it harder for an offense to identify guys if you're not really sure where Bam Martin Scott or Dylan Stewart is lining up? Do you have to identify those guys pre-snap? How much trickier does your preparation have to be when there's that little wrinkle thrown in? Those are the two big things that I'm looking at. And then I think number 3 and 4 is, okay, who comes out there for the offensive line? And this is where it's very tough, because there are, injuries. There's guys they want to limit. And also when you're doing a draft like this, like it's not like the 1s and the 2s, like the 1s versus the 2s. So it's hard to get a gate. Whoever lines up at offensive line, you're not really sure like where, if that's going to be the offensive line. But I think what you can see is like the wide receivers, like who steps up, who from this group is the guy. Is it going to be like the Gage Larvadane, the dude from Miami of Ohio? Is it Amari Huggins-Bruce from Louisville? It's Jared Brown from Coastal? Is it going to be, one of the freshmen? Is it going to be the Mazio Bennett, the DeBron Gatling? That's kind of, I think, the position where a spring game you can actually kind of look around and be like, okay, the lights are on. We got fans in a stadium. We got a real defense trying. What wide receivers can get separation? What wide receivers can make a play? What wide receivers are running screen passes or going deep and that type of thing? So I think that the wide receivers more than the offensive line is one of those positions of need that you can actually evaluate a little bit during a spring game. And then, the caveat is I would think South Carolina is going to bring in 1 or 2 offensive linemen and wide receiver over the next 2 weeks in the transfer portal. So, there could be a surprise addition or something in the next couple weeks. And, maybe it doesn't matter as much, but that's kind of what I'm looking for. I don't know if that hit on everything you kind of had in your head too.
Yeah, I mean, so I think you bring up a good point. And so I think with Lenora Sellers being a younger guy who's played very little pressure situation snaps, they came out 2 or 3 plays against Kentucky and just ran the ball, right? Against Furman and Vanderbilt, So there was no pressure. South Carolina had huge leads. He did make great throws and the big run against Vanderbilt, but I think I would want to see him under the lights for a half.
Yeah.
I would want to see how he plays if he's pressured. I want to see, what it's like for him to play multiple series in a live situation with fans under the lights.
Yeah.
So I think he probably does play a half. I'm interested to see if Shane Beamer alluded to this in his press conference about keeping certain units maybe together for continuity. If you don't see, at least a center guard and tackle that have all been working together on each team, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if it'll be Vershawn Lee and Trevon Ball and Kason Henry, and maybe it'll be Torricelli Simpkins and Marquis Anderson and Big Tree Babalade, and then you put a couple of guys on the other side that have been playing together, and that's how you do it. Same could be for the wide receivers. I'm anxious to see how they use Joshua Simon and Brady Hunt, because right now, to me, South Carolina desperately needs size at wide receiver. No Nicholas Harbor. The only other guy over 5'11" broke his finger or his hand or something on spring break, C.J. Adams. And so you got all these Smurfs, right? I do expect South Carolina to be active. Shane Beamer even specifically mentioned wide receiver and offensive line. Me personally, if I could get one, and there's one on the market, Cormani McLean.
Yeah.
Who's a 5-star guy who's leaving Colorado. Well, guess where he's from? Lakeland, Florida. Guess who else is from Lakeland, Florida? Torian Gray. And so, again, that would be a concern for me. I mean, okay, do you really want to go into year 4 with only one guy that's experienced at cornerback and a new quarterback? I mean, those are two of the biggest positions, right? Like quarterback, wide receiver, which you're not great at. Let's face it. The reports I've got is South Carolina's wide receivers right now, as of today, are probably at or near the bottom of the Southeastern Conference.
Sure.
Okay, you got a new quarterback, and you've got one guy that's played at corner, and to me, he's not shown that he is a lockdown NFL type of guy like J.C. Horn or Cam Smith or Darius Rush. He's just kind of been a guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I had Hale on the podcast on Monday, and we talked about that, well, why hadn't South Carolina gone after a portal corner? I mean, to me, that is really a big need. I'm not knocking Bakari Swain or Judge Collier or Jalewis Solomon, but you're coming off a losing season going into year 4, and you still have significant question marks. And, oh, by the way, you're playing LSU, Alabama, Texas A&M, and Oklahoma like within 6 weeks of each other.
Yeah.
They need to satisfy some of these needs in the transfer portal.
I totally agree. Yeah. They have work to do, no doubt.
I mean, I'll say this. I do think, honestly, they have the guys now to just be a 4-man front. But here's the Nick Saban defense was they had a guy they called a jack linebacker. They had a buck who normally was a hand in the dirt, And they had the big Jack linebacker who was normally a 6'3", 6'4", 6'5" guy that was athletic enough that he could play standing up and in space or come off the edge.
Yeah.
You know, like you said, with Dylan Stewart, with Brian Thomas Jr., with Kyle Kennard, and even Gilbert Edmond. I mean, they have a lot of guys. And then you've got JT Gear and Elijah Davis, Desmond Umeozulu, guys that could probably play that other end spot with their hand in the dirt. And so they do have, and I'm not discounting Bam Martin Scott either as that guy.
Yeah.
But I really think South Carolina's improved in their front six with the depth, with the size, athleticism, and experience at linebacker, at edge, and at defensive tackle, bringing in DeAndre Jules.
Yeah.
Who played a lot of football at Pitt, who is a big, massive dude in the middle to go with TJ Sanders, Boogie Huntley, Tonka Hemingway, and others. And I mentioned those edge guys. You add to Debo Williams and Bam Martin Scott, guys like Demetrius Knight, Bengali Kamara, and the two freshmen who I think are clearly the most athletic and best high school linebackers South Carolina signed in the Beamer era. And they're going through spring. And you hear a lot of good things from their teammates. I really think that front six can maybe help the corners because they should be a better team affecting the quarterback this year. That's what I'm interested to see, is what does that front six look like in the depth and how they're able to roll guys in and out of there.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. The dudes in the front are going to have a lot of responsibility to kind of help the guys on the back end.
Yeah, I mean, I am intrigued by the offensive line. I mean, not very good in the first scrimmage, better in the second scrimmage, but was that because some of the defensive guys were out? I mean, both things can be true. I mean, to me, Sean Elliott, I think he's got to be more involved. I mean, Lonnie Teasley, outside of 3 games, he's essentially been the offensive line coach all 3 years at South Carolina because of Greg Adkins' health. And you brought in Rocket Sanders. You brought in Oscar Attaway. You brought in Juwan Howell. You got a couple of freshman backs as well. You got to protect the passer, but if you're going to be able to run the football, it all starts up front with the offensive line. So I'm really interested to see what that looks like. And it would really be good if Casey Henry, it sounds like, has been healthy all spring, which is a first for him at South Carolina.
Yeah, I think Casey Henry is, from everything I've heard, is just had an incredible spring.
I mean, if he could stay healthy and Big Tree continues to progress, and then you bring along Josiah Thompson, and you got Ja'Kai Moore, who's played a lot of football at guard and tackle, I think that could bode well. All right, so South Carolina just wrapped up their 3rd national championship under Dawn Staley, and this should not be lost on any Gamecock fan. The 3-year period, 110-3, and only one game, well, really 2 games. The loss to Kentucky in the SEC tournament when they hit the 3 to go up by 2 and win the game, or maybe 3. And the Tennessee game in the SEC tournament where Camila Cardoso banked in a 3 at the buzzer to win that one. Those are the only 2 one-possession games I can think of.
Yeah.
2 national championships in the last 3 years. And Camila Cardoso, the only player at the WNBA draft who could say she was a 2-time national champion, who went number 3, and Dawn Staley now with Asia Wilson, Aaliyah Boston, and Camila Cardoso in this run. I know Gino doesn't like to hear that South Carolina is now the best program in the country, but she's the only player they're losing off a team that went 38-0 and won a national championship. And she's bringing in 2 McDonald's All-Americans and the National High School Player of the Year by multiple outlets, and Joyce Edwards, who just led Team USA to win the Nike Hoop Summit. Dawn Staley also the only African-American coach, male or female, to win 3 national championships in a team sport.
That's crazy.
Pretty rare air South Carolina women's basketball and the FAMs are living right now.
Yeah. It's weird and it sucks because I don't think South Carolina nationally is the story. Their dominance is so great that I think it almost becomes ordinary, which is kind of a shame in a way. It's they're so good that they are boring. And that is the ultimate compliment, and also the reason that no one else around the country is, clamoring around South Carolina women's basketball. People care more about Caitlin Clark. They care more about, the scoring record and the new thing rather than just utter domination. And I don't know how you change that. Maybe you can't. I think there are a lot of people in the 2010s who didn't really care much about UConn women's basketball either. I think it was, hey, oh, yep, they won again. Awesome. Cool. Let's move on. That's kind of the state of South Carolina women's basketball right now. They're so good that people expect them to win. And if they don't win, that's only when it's a story. Them winning is not a story. Them losing is a story. You don't apologize for that. You don't say anything. You just say, hey, we'll keep winning. We'll keep winning. And I think it's one of those things right now that a lot of people around the country probably don't appreciate. And then you'll look back in 10 years and go, holy crap. Like that was really impressive. But right now it's hard, I being from the West Coast or whatever, I can tell you most people on the West Coast probably can't name very many players on South Carolina women's basketball. It's such a collective team thing where it's like, oh yeah, that, Dawn Staley's team won again. Great. And it's weird. It's weird. You list off how good they've been, how dominant they've been, all these rare and these, awards and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, man, are they just going to win again? Are they just going to dominate again? It's interesting. It's weird. There's no drama. There's no nothing. They just win. Maybe they should just, claim the Mark Davis mantra or the Al Davis mantra. So I don't know what you think of that. I mean, you care a lot about this program. You've seen them for years and years. And it's like, if you're a fan, like this is all you could ever hope for in life, is that the team you love is so gosh dang good. And now they're there, and it's like, oh, like what else? What else are you gonna do? I don't know. It's weird. It's like LSU was a bigger story because they had drama, and South Carolina is just like, we have no drama. All our players like each other. All our players like the coach, and we don't lose. Awesome. The biggest thing that happened was the fight with LSU. That was the biggest thing that happened this year.
Yeah, and now Angel Reese and Camila Cardoso are going to be teammates.
I know, that's hilarious. That's so fun. That is so great. Yeah. See, that's so great.
I mean, I'll say this. I think the women's game is in the best place it's ever been because you have stars now all across the country. Okay.
Sure.
Juju Watkins on the West Coast, Hannah Hidalgo at Notre Dame, Rory Harmon and Madison Booker at Texas. And then you look at South Carolina, Malaysia Fulwiley is a star. Joyce Edwards is a budding superstar. She will be another impact freshman. You got all these McDonald's All-Americans lined up. Ashlyn Swatkins, who steals the ball and just casually goes down and dunks it, who gets 20 rebounds in a Final Four game off the bench. That's never been done. Tessa Johnson, the unheralded freshman, 19 points, a career high in the national championship game, and just no fear as a knockdown shooter.
Yeah.
Malaysia Fulwiley just threw her baseball pass and she caught it and just took one step and just banged a three like no big deal. It's a national championship game. We're kicking Caitlin Clark's ass. Raven Johnson's picking her pocket and blocking her shots.
Yeah.
Caitlin Clark, 2-time national championship game loser. Okay, a great scorer, but I have a feeling she's going to get humbled a little bit
Perhaps.
in the WNBA. But Aaliyah Boston can be her best friend because she commands the ball, and if they play inside out, Caitlin Clark will get more open looks. All right, so let's wrap it up here with the little Gamecock baseball. Winners of 5 of their last 6, starting with getting up off the deck after losing the first 2 against Texas A&M. Then they get the big midweek win over North Carolina that gave them momentum going to Gainesville. They took the first 2 against the Gators before dropping an 11 Sunday game. Then they beat the Citadel last night 4-3. They're 26-11. They're 8-7 at the midway point of the SEC season. They got Arkansas coming in this weekend. Their RPI is up to number 13. I mean, with the teams left on the schedule and particularly coming into Columbia, South Carolina has a chance now to really make a move and potentially work their way into one of the 16 national seeds. Your thoughts thus far with this team?
They can. I mean, the path is definitely there for them to do it. But man, that Florida series, they had incredibly hot bats, and then you look at the pitching line, and aside from Eli Jones, there's a lot of guys struggling. And so do you go forward and say, hey, we're good. We're getting about 10 hits a game. We're scoring 9 runs a game. Don't even worry about the pitching. We're good. Do you say that, or are you like, crap, like we have no idea who our Friday, Saturday starters are? And even the guys who come behind them in the bullpen, it's like, you're not 100% sure what you're going to get. I mean, it's a team right now that, they only have 11 losses. Ethan Petrie and Cole Messina are hitting really good. The guys in the bottom of the lineup, Will Tippett, who was hitting under the Mendoza line all year, all of a sudden has a fantastic weekend, plays well against the Citadel too. And you're like, oh, okay, if that guy's hitting, we're feeling pretty good about things. And then you look at the pitching line, it's like, yeah, man, is this sustainable? Is this okay? And that's what they have to answer these next 2 weekends against who I think is Arkansas and Kentucky. It's, hey, who are our pitchers for May? Who is going to be the Saturday, Sunday starters in May? And right now, I don't think they know that. And that's what gives you a lot of pause to even say, South Carolina could work its way into a top 16 seed. It's like, great. But, to win those regionals, to win a super regional, to win in the College World Series, you need pitching. You need lots of pitching because you're playing day after day after day. And right now, I don't trust South Carolina's pitching. And so, unless they're going to go score 10 runs a game like they did against Florida, then you're kind of looking and going, man, I don't know how sustainable this is. So maybe they can right the ship here in the next 2 weekends. Maybe it doesn't matter if you just keep hitting the ball and Cole Messina and Ethan Petrie play like All-Americans. So that's kind of what I was thinking about it. I don't know what your take was.
So my question is, what about some of the younger guys that have been pitching in the midweek that have come in for relief?
Yeah. I mean, they did that a little bit. Matthew Becker, not necessarily a young guy, a starter last year, was injured to begin the year. He was
he was not good against Florida.
That's kind of where I'm going with this. It's like you have a lot. Ty Good, another one who's really good in all these midweek games, and then
I like him better out of the bullpen.
Yeah, he goes and pitches on Saturday and gives up like 6 runs. So it's tough because a lot of people
like Pitzer and Dylan Eskew.
I mean, I think Eskew on Saturday was on, his Saturday starts, was struggling a lot of the year. Pitzer, I think, is probably the next in line. Maybe that'll come. I guess it probably won't come this week since he started on Tuesday. But yeah, maybe he's the guy of, okay, let's give him a shot start. Or, I don't know if you can go bullpen days just for every Saturday and Sunday. That just doesn't seem super sustainable to me. Maybe it is.
What about Roman Kimball? I mean, I was kind of surprised when these
are all guys that they've tried out and just really struggled starting games. I mean, Roman Kimball had his first appearance. He combines for a no-hitter, and then his next 3 starts, he can hardly hit the strike zone. I mean, it's a tough thing right now. It's because they keep giving these guys opportunities to start, and none of them have just taken it and run with it. And so you're left going back to the drawing board and doing what you're doing right now. And it's like, what about this guy? What about this guy? And all of a sudden you just keep coming back to the same names you were at, 2 months ago.
All right. So, I mean, this is a big year. I've always thought Mark Kingston, South Carolina's not been to the College World Series since 2013. They've, been to a couple super regionals, have not been able to win them, not been able to advance. I mean, let's say if they go like current projection, they're the number 2 seed in North Carolina's regional in Chapel Hill. If they don't get out of that, is Ray Tanner looking for his 3rd baseball coach since he stepped into the athletic director's office?
He's gonna be thinking about it. I don't know if he would pull the trigger. I think as a coach, he gives other coaches, particularly baseball coaches, a lot of leeway of saying like, hey, I understand what you're going through. You can have a bad season as a coach. You can do all these things, but man, to not make a College World Series, and what is it? What's Kingston been in 7 years, 8 years to only make the supers? What, last year? It's a tough track record.
One other time at Arkansas.
2 years.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. But never hosting a super regional.
Right.
You're never hosting a super regional. You're never making it to Omaha. And now you're going into year 8 and you're thinking, okay, well, we got Cole Messina's probably gone. We got one more year of Ethan Petrie. Do we have any? Are we getting any better with our pitching staff? And you're kind of looking around, and I don't know. That's one of those things where I think Ray would think about it long and hard, and I'm not sure what decision he would come to.
All right. So the question I've been dying to ask you the whole time is, what was it like to play Augusta National?
It was unbelievable.
And so so how many people, they have the lottery for the media, right?
Yeah,
So how many people do they choose? And then just talk about, because I've been there. It's been a long time, but I mean, I went on the first day when they play in groups of 3.
Yeah,
I saw Trevino and Palmer and Plater together, right? I followed them for a few holes. I saw Tiger, Mickelson, all these guys, and just the beauty, right? Like you used to not see the front 9 on TV. It was just the back 9.
Now you can see every shot. Yeah,
to be there, the azaleas, and at the par 3, in the stands. It was surreal, but to actually get to play the course, what was that like? And what was your score?
It was a 97.
Hey, that's awesome.
No, and like I honestly didn't hit, like I literally have played golf like one time in the last like 8 months. Like I was covering football. I literally had to move across the country. It was winter. Like I have not played a lot of golf. I used to be pretty solid, like 10, 12 handicap. And now I don't even know because I don't play enough. And it sucks.
But on a regular course, you probably would be. Though.
I'd be close to that. Yeah.
Are like putting on a hockey.
So, yeah, I mean, literally, I didn't hit the ball. I didn't hit the ball terrible. I just 3-putted like 13 holes. Like I'm not like that's literally what it was. And they were, I mean, the greens had definitely been watered from Sunday, which honestly it almost made it harder. The first 4 holes, like the first 4 holes, I literally shorted every putt because in my head I'm like,
right.
I just watched
the same. Yeah.
I'm like, I just watched this green yesterday and guys were barely touching it and it's going to the hole. And so I'm like literally so scared putting. I'm like, this is going to go 1,000,000 miles an hour. This is going to be the fastest putt I've ever hit. And then you hit it and it's like, the caddies are like, you gotta hit the ball, get it there. And I'm like, crap, this is not what I thought. I don't know. It's like the weirdest. I can't even describe it. It's like, it's so weird because like on one hand, you literally are just playing a round of golf. And there's moments when you're just going up to your ball and like, it can literally be like the 13th hole. And you're just like, okay, the green's there. I got to put it here. And then you're like walking down the fairway and you literally have to like think to yourself like, oh crap, I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe I'm here. It's weird though. Cause like, I don't know, the whole time I was like, man, this would have been a lot. You're playing with, so there's 24 guys that win, 24 media members that win out of, I don't know how many. You can only, like, if you win, you can't apply for like 7 years. So like right off the bat, there's a lot of people who like, that's why like a lot of people in their first year end up winning is because so many people are just like disqualified because they've played in the last 7 years. So it's like, you see, there's hundreds of media members, but if a lot of them have played in the last 7 years. So you kind of get a lot of first year people, which is how I probably got in there. But it's so weird because you're just playing with, 3 guys you've never met and you're playing the most beautiful golf course in the world. And I'm just, it sounds weird because you can't be the guy that'd be like, oh yeah, it wasn't the greatest experience ever. It'd be like going to the moon and being like, it was cool. Yeah, it's cool. Had fun. But man, the whole time I was just like, this would have been so weird with my friend, like with my dad or something like that. It's kind of weird, like, what really is an experience if you can't enjoy it with other people that you like. So I kind of felt that at the end. It was a very weird feeling where you're like, man, this should be the like how does my life get any better than this? I just played Augusta National, and then you're like, now I just have to call all the people that I wish I was playing with.
So who was your first call when you found out you had won?
Oh, I texted my dad and I was just like, holy I can't believe like I didn't call him. I texted him like the email, and he couldn't believe it. Like, just the coolest thing ever. And then I when I was driving out off the course, I FaceTimed him, and I put my camera up on my dashboard and drove down Magnolia Lane, and that was pretty cool. That stuff is awesome. And then it's also weird too. Like, I mean, this is maybe I'll write this story for next year of like I see all the sappy stories of people like they play Augusta National and they're like, this was the greatest moment of my life and the greatest blah, 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 blah. And I don't know, I came away with it. It's like, to me, it's like meeting your hero. It's like they say never meet your heroes because you're always disappointed. And it's not that you're like disappointed, but you're just like, oh, wow. It's a lot of times you have like regrets because you'll never do it again. And so you're just like, everything is like, I'm just like, fuck, like, God damn. Like literally like wearing, like I wore a shirt and I'm like, man, I should have wore a bigger shirt. Like, I didn't, kind of the weird color didn't look great. I'm like, damn, I'm never going to take that picture again. My caddy didn't like focus. Like some, the caddies were great, but he, on some of the pictures, he didn't focus, like, it didn't focus completely or he was too zoomed in. I'm like, damn, I'm never going to get that picture again. It's just like, the 12th hole, I'm like, literally the scaredest I've ever been. And, I kind of like, pulled the ball a little bit. And the guys I was playing with, they probably like golf a little too much for my taste. But they didn't want to hit like another ball on 12. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Just weird. It's like, we're at this fucking 12th hole at Augusta National and you want to play one ball? Like, come on, like, let's have fun here. Just stuff like that. Yeah. It's like, it's just weird because one of the guys went in the water. I'm like, dude, just hit another ball. Like, come on. Like, when are you going to do this again?
Hardcore for me.
Yeah. I mean, like
Rodney Dangerfield and
So I was one of the guys. It was insane. This guy literally. I mean, I hope he doesn't see this, but he literally like writes about golf for a living. We get to the 16th hole. Everyone, on practice round days, you skip the ball, and he's like, he just walks right past. He's like walking to his ball. I'm like, what are you doing, dude? Like, when are you going to be at the 16th hole at Augusta again? Like, you're not going to skip the ball. Yeah. So it's things like that. Like, literally, yesterday was like so weird because I'm like, I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And I don't know. It's the coolest thing and not the coolest thing at the same time. Like, I don't know if that makes sense. And I don't know if people are going to hate me and be like, how can you not think that was just the greatest thing ever? I don't know if that makes any sense. It was just so weird. I can't even describe it. Like, doing something that cool is so weird. And I don't know. It's like almost hard to process. It's very strange.
For me, like in big moments like that, like being in Dallas in 2017 when South Carolina won being at the national championship game.
Yeah, that's a good example.
And kind of just looking around and living in the moment, being in the moment and drinking it in. Like last season for the Kentucky game, I had this sideline pass to be down on the field for 2001 with the light show and everything else. Just being there and living in the moment and drinking it all in, right? Like Carpe just sucking the marrow out of the moment. That's what it's got to be all about.
It is. And I mean, there are those moments where, I vividly remember, like walking up the first tee and I just cranked my drive. I was so happy, like so nervous. I just calmed down, just blasted it. And I could not stop smiling because I'm just thinking like you're looking around, you're like, holy crap. And then to just stare at the 12th tee box from the 12th green, knowing you'll like probably a couple thousand people have ever seen that view is a hard thing to think about. And you're just like, you're looking around smiling, just like, holy cow. Like this.
Arnold Palmer's seen it a few times, so
A couple, but he counts as one person, doesn't? Yeah,
that's right.
I was trying to also do the in my head. Not when yesterday. I was like, I wonder how many people have played it. It's probably it's probably a couple thousand. I would think.
I'd have to think now, like for those guys, for Palmer,
10,000. I would say.
Nicholas, those guys, they know. It's the end is coming. They've done it 40 times or 45 times or 50 times, ever how many. But I have to think now, every year when they step up to that tee box or when they're on the 12th green looking back at the tee box, right?
It's pretty cool.
They probably drink it in a little bit more than they did 30 years ago. Right.
Yeah, to walk over the Hogan Bridge, just thinking as a kid, like, wow, I wonder what that's like. That's pretty good. And then just I think my favorite part too is seeing the stuff that you'd never see.
That's right.
Like the creek in front of 12 is like crystal clear, like it's very clear, which means they for sure dye every other pond in the course. Because you look at the actual raised creek and I was like, oh, this is very clear. You can see fish swimming. I saw like tons of fish, like a bunch of turtles, and then like I think they call it like an alligator turtle. Like literally looks like a prehistoric like thing just coming out of the raised creek in front of the 13 tee box. And I'm just like, whoa, like I did not know this was here. To like look at and see angles to walk up 13 and look inside raised creek, and that stuff you'll never see. And I'm like, whoa, that's pretty. Yeah, it was pretty cool. So it's weird. It's also weird to do it alone. I think was the big thing I kept coming back to. Is like, I was like, wow, this is cool. Like, I wish I could FaceTime someone right now, or I wish someone who was walking with me. It was weird. And then you have all the regrets of like, man, I wish I practiced golf more. I wish I got this picture better. I wish I did this better. I wish I hit a better tee shot here. Why did I try harder on this hole? Why did I hit this shot? And it's like, you just keep, it's just like constant. And I'm like, oh my God, I got to shut this off. It's a very weird feeling. I literally can't describe it as anything else, but very weird. Very, very cool. Surreal.
Very cool and very special.
Special, surreal, cool, but very weird. Like hard to even like comprehend, hard to like wrap your head around. It was interesting. It was interesting.
Yeah, I think what they should do is cut the number down and like cut it in half and allow the people that win to have like your dad.
Well, it's so hard because like, a lot of the people were from Europe or Asia. Like they're literally there for, they're there and they're going home. There was another guy from like Florida or whatever. It's not something, I'm not saying that, they need to change anything. I can't even believe they let us play at all. But that was like kind of the thing I kept coming back to is like, man, this is cool. And I can't wait to tell everyone about it and type thing. And it's weird to like play golf, even at your local course with like guys you don't know. And now now you're trying to live, you're trying to soak in every moment by yourself.
Right.
So it's cool. Smart. Stop.
It would have been really cool to like be able to fist bump your best friend or your dad.
Yeah.
You crank that drive to turn around and your dad just way to go.
And that's what I was thinking is like, man, this is like, this would have been so cool. Like to experience with someone else or to be able to do that.
Yeah. Or to watch your dad.
Yeah.
Make a putt or make a great
Isn't
shot.
That, like,
right.
That's like at the end of the day, isn't that like what golf is about? Like why you go out there? It's not to necessarily play the game, but to enjoy the people who you're playing with. So that's kind of what I kept coming back to. I don't know if that's
being outside.
Yeah. I don't know if that's too philosophical. But it was weird. It's like, I don't know. It's so strange. I just can't even. So strange to something you never thought would happen, and then you're doing it, and you're like, "Wow, I don't know if this is everything I thought it would be, or not what I thought it would be." And then it's like, yeah, and then knowing you'll never do it again is kind of a crazy thing to think about too.
Well, maybe Shane Beamer will invite you to go along when he plays.
I did, yeah. I was trying to look around for any members who had South Carolina ties. I was like, I wonder who's.
I know a guy.
I know one or I found at least two. At least two. There's probably a couple more that I could think of, but yeah.
Oh,
so,
man, what a great experience, and
this is cool.
I'm glad you got to tell everybody here about it.
Yeah,
I know it'll be well received.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Now I need to go back. In 7 years, if I'm still here and I enter the lottery, I got to make sure that I'm practicing for the couple months leading up to it. One of the guys in my group is like legit, like almost a scratch golfer. He shot like a 79.
Wow.
Pretty damn, yeah. You're playing from the members tees. That was also what was a little weird. Is you're playing like literally some of these holes like 120 yards in front of where the pros play. 100 yards, 80 yards on a lot of holes. I mean, it's drastic.
So think about how many strokes that takes off over the course of 18 holes.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably 18 strokes. I would maybe not 18 strokes.
I mean, I'd hate to desecrate the course because I hadn't played much. When I was playing all the time, I could, shoot under 90.
Yeah.
But
most rounds, if I went and played a regular course, I could probably break 90, even not playing very much. It was just the greens. I literally could not putt so hard. And like the hole is like here, and your caddy is like, aim here. And he's like, it'd be like 6 feet to the left and like 10 feet short. And he would draw like a imaginary circle and be like, this is your hole. And I was like, what? He's like, just aim here. And I mean, it's nowhere, like literally nowhere near the hole. And sure enough, he would aim there and it would kind of go towards where the hole was. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. And even doing that, it's so hard to judge the speed. That's what was like, that was what was tough. And there's so many hills too, where if you put it sometimes you could put your first putt 6-7 feet past and you're like, what the hell? I'm not making this putt either.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was.
Well, you drive for show and you putt for dough.
I know. I did drive the ball pretty solid. Had some couple good wedge shots. Had some nice. I mean, I really played well in the par threes. Had a par on 4. Almost a par, but tough bogey on 6. But hit a good shot. Par 16, a bogey 12. Like I played really well in the par 3, so I was happy about that.
Getting a par on 16, that's
it was. I mean, it was a really good. I mean, flew over the bunker, just a little long of the hole, hit a tough downhill putt, made par. I was like, man, I was pretty pumped about that. That was sweet to get over 12 too. I mean, just not going in the creek. I think I took an extra club. I was just so scared. I was like, oh my God. Because you just think it's a golf shot, and then you take your last look, and you're just like, then your heart starts pumping, and your mind gets swirling, and you're like, don't mess up. So I literally can't imagine trying to play that on a Sunday when there's actual stakes. It's crazy. I mean, that's
all the people lined up.
Oh yeah,
on both sides.
At least for 12, you can't see the people, but the people behind you. I mean, that's why, the practice rounds are so big for those guys is like, especially if you're a first-time player there, like just to be able to hit that shot a couple times and be like, okay, like it's not crazy anymore. Like I've done it. I think that would be huge to do that. So it was incredible. Yeah, one of those like once in a lifetime things that, I'm looking through the pictures now or whatever. I'm like, it's hard to believe that you were standing in some of the places.
Awesome. Well, hey, great stuff, Jordan, as always.
Thanks,
really
Keith.
Enjoyed our conversation, and hopefully we can catch up after the spring game
Would love to
get your thoughts on that.
Awesome, man.
All right. Well, hey, take care, and we'll look forward to catching up with you down the road.
See ya.
All right, that was my interview with Jordan Kaye. Man, he's awesome. He is really a talented dude. So, looks like the Gamecocks are in the wide receiver business in the transfer portal. And a couple of more names have entered. And quietly on the message boards, you've been hearing about a transfer wide receiver, maybe from the state of Texas, to watch out for. Well, I don't know if this is the guy or not, but Sam Brown, who is a native of Bloomingdale, Georgia, New Hampstead High School. He's 6'2", 186. He's got 2 years of eligibility left. This past year, 62 catches for 815 yards and 3 touchdowns. He certainly fits the profile. Evidently, Kyle Kennard knows him. He's made a post on social media. Another guy with great size that's entered the portal, Colorado State wide receiver Justice Ross Simmons. Man, how about Sellers serves up justice? That could be a great headline. He's a native of Inglewood, California. He's 6'3", 215 pounds. He's got 2 years of eligibility. He's going to take a visit to Syracuse this weekend. South Carolina is in his group with Brown. There's a family connection to Columbia, so that's worth watching out for. And then the Gamecocks are going to take a swing at Penn State transfer wide receiver Keandre Lambert Smith, who's 6'1", 188. He was Penn State's leading receiver. He's from Fred J.R. Johnson's high school at Maury High School in Norfolk, Virginia. So we'll see if the Gamecocks are able to make a move on any of these guys. Those nuggets, courtesy of my guy, Wes Mitchell at Gamecock Central. All right, that's going to be a wrap for Gamecock Pod Daily. I'll be back tomorrow with the best of the Q&A from Dowell Loggins and Clayton White. And that should be good. And, of course, our Nana's Porch News Notes and Headlines. Thanks to everybody who watched live. This will be going up on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Google Play, wherever you get your podcasts, you can get this absolutely free. Craig, always appreciate your support and glad you enjoyed it. So until tomorrow, this is Keith Alsep for Gamecock Pod Live, signing off. Go Gamecocks, and God bless you all.